There we
We
go.
will be more
Steve,
official
did you
now.
and Bob get to the movies yesterday?
No, we didn't go.
Okay.
What were you going to
No.
see?
We wanted to go see, oh man,
West Side Story.
West Side Story, but
Yeah,
it
Bob.
wasn't showing in our area.
You know, I thought about going to see that, and I so loved the first movie. I was kind
It's
of
wonderful. I
This-
really enjoyed it.
I
I-
heard
Well,
it was
Rita
quite good.
Moreno was fabulous. So was everybody.
Well, she's always.
Yeah. I mean, it was very well done, and I like the fact that the cast was mostly, you know, Hispanic for those parts. And Stephen Sondheim had I read that Stephen Sondheim had seen it before it was released, and he said to Stephen, "You did good."
Oh,
Oh,
that's
wow.
nice.
Very
You
nice.
know, it'll be
He won
interesting if
there's a couple Academy Award nominations.
right. But the thing is, I think if it were to win this year, it might be the first movie to win it twice.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
Because
Oh,
it
well, different
received a
That's
Best
interesting.
Picture back in 1960, and so I sort of like that.
Actually,
know,
7
but-
nominations, I think it was.
Yeah,
out of the movie, so it can't be all bad, right?
Right.
I saw Gucci. I saw the House of
Oh,
Gucci.
how was that?
I liked it. I didn't even realize, you know, who the star was. you know.
Lady Gaga. There are
Lady-
people now saying she was snubbed, but
Yeah, she
Yeah,
was.
well, she wasn't a blonde, you know, and
Right.
especially sexy.
But she wasn't she nominated a year or two ago in that movie with Bradley Cooper, which my brain is not functioning to say.
Star is born.
A Star is Born. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's
it.
right, Dee.
You're welcome.
No, was it her? A Star is Born? I thought it was
Yes,
Renee
yes.
Zellweger. She
No,
played Judy
no.
Garland.
Lady
No,
Gaga did the
Oh, the
latest
Star, you're
remake.
right. The Star is Born with Judy, Renee.
Renee Zellweger.
But it was a remake also.
Yeah.
Hi, Bernie.
Hey, Bernie.
Hello, I just
Hey,
got
Bernie.
lost.
How's
Well, I
that?
see you found yourself.
Yeah.
No, I don't know what I did. I hit the wrong key.
How's
Well,
the
we can
weather by
see
you?
you.
That's Zoo.
Not bad.
You hear it's going to be 80 today for the first time.
Yeah.
Here? No.
Siri
Oh,
told me
sure, yeah.
79 today, so in my neighborhood. So
right.
anyway,
You know, how's Cy? Is he out of the hospital?
I don't know. I haven't heard,
About him.
oh, sorry, yeah, I hadn't heard either. No.
so maybe Rabbi knows.
I did hear that Barbara Moss was going in for her treatment, so
Uh-oh.
that her white blood count got so high that she's eligible now for the clinical trial, which is good that she's in for the trial, but bad that her count is so high. Oh. So is the rabbi going to be here today, Steve?
He is here, but he's not, we don't see him yet.
Okay. Here's
I don't
Mary.
see Rita. Is Rita here? Rita.
Reva's
She
not
comes
on yet.
on. She'll be here.
I talked with her earlier. She called me at 10 o'clock saying, I can't get on, I can't get on. I said,
What
you're an hour early.
What happened to
It's
Lyle? Remember that lady? She was a nice lady.
Which lady?
What
Lyle?
lady?
Lyle?
Who?
Oh,
Michelle?
Lael.
Lael?
Lael. I don't know. We haven't talked.
You know, I
seen
think
her in a
Lael has
couple
been
weeks.
really active with Hadassah. Maybe that's why she hasn't had the time. Lael
Mhm.
Summers, you mean?
Yeah, I think that's her last name.
Is Ray on? Steve?
Not yet.
Lael.
Lael, the only Lael I
Yeah.
remember is Summers.
Hi,
Hi,
Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Hello.
Hear me,
Can't hear you.
There's
Yeah.
Reva.
hear me.
Barely.
You're,
Barely.
yeah. You need to increase your volume. Somehow.
And I've got to make full screen over here.
How are you feeling, Rabbi?
There were just so you know.
Where is
They're
he?
not so great. But I'm getting.
Go back to bed
Oh,
after
there he is.
this.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? No.
It's still
No,
faint.
it's very light. Yeah.
Can't see where I'm
Hi,
going.
Pam.
Hi.
I mean,
Pam.
Missed you last week, Pam.
Oh, yeah. Well, my brother was visiting.
Did he go back?
Yes. Now he had a conference in Scottsdale, so he
Nice,
came a few days early. And it was good to see him.
good.
Of course.
Well, at least it was better that it was last week because you didn't have all that waste management open traffic. I mean, this is the week to avoid that part of town.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I
I mean,
won't go there.
Unless you're going to the Gulf.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I avoid crowds in general, so.
Me too.
Okay.
Rabbi, can I call you this afternoon on another matter? Are
There
you?
you go.
Oh, I think he
Yeah.
went out
Probably
and
went
he's
out
gonna
and
come
coming
back in.
again.
He has problems with his sound. Oh, here he comes.
Here he comes.
I don't see him.
I'm gonna have to
There
leave a little early,
Wow.
okay?
Hi, Benita.
Yeah.
Good
Rabbi,
morning,
can I,
Benita.
Rabbi, can I call you this afternoon?
You still can't hear me?
Yes,
that
we
was
hear
much
you
better.
fine.
We hear you.
Much
Speak up.
better.
Yeah, I can hear you.
We're
I'm a long
good.
way away and I can hear you.
Say something.
I'm gonna say something that
Better.
that I want you to see if you can hear me. Pam Katz asked if she can call me this afternoon,
Yes.
maybe right after this for a few minutes.
Great. Thank you.
I got time between 12:30 and 1.
Okay. Thank you.
This is my old computer and I got a Chromebook, which I love, but there's a lot of things I don't know how to. It looks much prettier. I see your pictures you look much glossier and spiffier. But
The same old ladies.
How about you?
And gentlemen,
Hey, we got a couple of guys here. Be nice. Why don't we go ahead and get started? First of all, again, be respectful of others. Mute yourselves if you're not going to speak. And make sure that your video is seen so that we can see your faces. And if you would like to invite others to join us at Torah study, we would appreciate more people. And that is all I have to say about that. So let us begin with the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu mitzivanu zot divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the world, who has sanctified us with his commandments, commanded us to engage in the words of Torah. Amen. Rabbi. it's all
Rabbi,
yours.
did you hear anything? Is Sai out of the hospital?
yes,
Good.
a couple of days already.
Okay, good.
So that, that seems to have worked out pretty well. Although he would have missed his 100th birthday party if they hadn't canceled it the week before
Right.
because of COVID. So that sort of worked out okay. Good morning, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
And welcome to Rick. I think
Morning.
it's his second time with us. Ellen sends her regrets.
Third time.
Third
Three
time.
times.
Okay. Third time. And welcome to everyone else. Today we're dealing with Parshat Tetzaveh, which is from the middle of the book of Exodus. It's Perek Bet beginning on page 74. And the name of the section is Priestly Clothing, Fashionable Style or Significant Symbol. So we're moving from helping people to political problems with Moses, and now we're going into style. And so it is not true that Ralph Lauren designed the Kohane's clothes. It was Calvin Klein. But you can see here that the roots of fashion are very ancient. Men's fashion, actually. And today, we still see that the rabbis in the aftermath of the destruction of the Second Temple tried to keep these things going. And you see that the decorations on the Torahs are in some ways an attempt to continue the tradition of the Ephod and the Urim and Turim and these sorts of things. So these are ideas that most of us have very little idea about. So it'll be interesting to explore. Okay, that's just an opening statement. Is there anyone who'd like to say something relevant to this week's Parsha before we start? Pam.
Now we know why so many male fashion designers are Jewish.
A lot of autistic people, you know.
And these things that the Cohen wore were certainly artistic. They were uniquely designed, and they were designed to make an impression, as well as to send off certain symbolic messages. We have a problem because obviously when they're first described, is probably they were written, these descriptions were written very roughly 600 or 700 before the year 0. And when we think about the Second Temple, we're thinking about close to the year 0. So the descriptions and the actual practice went over 600 or 700 years. And so during that time, things may have evolved. So we're going to just try to figure out what was as best we can and what the meaning might be for us today. And then we're going to see if we can find somebody to make these clothes for us.
Mhm.
So Pam is like, yes, I'm all in. Now, of course, this was really closing just for the Kohanim and mainly, at least in part, for the Kohen Gadol, the priest, and specifically the high priest. As you know, I am a Kohen, and so I'm very proud of that lineage. And so I'm very excited to get my new garb. I'm gonna, after we decide exactly what it is going to include, I'm going to see if I can order it from Amazon. Babette, thank you for your best wishes. I'm recovering very slowly. It's a minor surgery, but it's very slow. But each day there's a little bit better, and it's just tolerable. If
Don't push yourself. If your body says rest, rest.
I'm definitely not pushing myself. But whether I'm at the office or at home or whatever, I still feel the same. So as long as I'm near a bathroom, then I'm okay. Okay, page 74. We're ready to get going. Nan or Marcia or anyone else want to volunteer? Okay, Marcia. Good morning, Marcia.
Okay. So, priestly clothing, fashionable style or significant symbol. According to the Torah, Aaron and his sons were not only appointed as priests to carry out all of the special animal sacrifices and rituals inside the Mikdash, but he as the high priest and his sons as assistants were to dress in uniquely designed and decorated clothing or costumes. Aaron is commanded to wear 8 different garments: the Ephod, breastplate of judgment, Urim and Thummim, blue robe, fringed tunic, embroidered sash, linen headdress, and gold plate worn over the headdress. Each garment is to be made by artists out of finest materials. Many
Wow.
commentators questioned all this attention to the dress of the priests. Why is the Torah so concerned with costume and style?
Okay, stop. So does this surprise you that the Torah is so concerned with issues about costume and style?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
It does, Lorraine, it surprises you.
yes,
Why?
because it seems trivial with all the other stuff
Okay.
to me, and as you read more, it's like too frivolous.
So they should be worried more about feeding the hungry or fighting political corruption or whatever. Pam?
Correct.
I agree with Lorraine. It just seems so un-Jewish to me. It just seems like trivial and, playing dress up. I'm not a fan of the vestments.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now there's remember there's 4 sources, and the 4 sources are very different and contradict each other. And so when Pam says un-Jewish, she's probably referring to some of the other sources, which were more concerned with the people. But this comes from the P document, which is focused on the priests. And so, the view expressed in the P document is very different, maybe contradictory to what is found in 2 or 3 of the others, which were more concerned with the people. So I guess you could say it was un-Jewish, but it's this is the perspective of the priests, and those are my people, so I'm sticking with them. Marcia.
Well, I think it goes back again to the culture of the times. I mean, they're coming out of Egypt, and Pharaoh and all his courtiers and people all are dressed to the hilt. No, that's not a good expression. But all dressed up. Okay. And I would imagine the other religions in the area also had unusual garb. It separates the leader from the people, and I think that was the purpose of it. They got a little carried away here, I think, but still, yeah.
Okay, well, so we're trying to copy the Egyptians. We're trying to establish ourselves as a society in the same way as the societies around us. Babette.
Well, it says later on in the chapter, bringing it forward, that judges wear robes, right? A judge isn't wearing a suit. That it's you respect some people in authority, and sometimes they dress that way.
And in Australia, they wore these wigs.
England too, yeah.
The English
Yes.
court.
Because when I was a student rabbi in Australia, we went to visit a judge, and he wasn't in court, I don't think. Maybe he'd just come from court or something, but he had a wig on.
It started in England, I think.
It
yeah.
was the most bizarre thing, but nobody else seemed to look at it weirdly. I was like, what is that guy wearing? And everybody else just said, he's a judge. He's a judge. Minya.
I agree with a little of what everybody has said, as far as it's a little over the top. It's good to separate the dress of the leaders from the rest of the congregation. But on the other hand, coming down into the years, we discussed this a few weeks ago. We said that people like to get dressed up when they go to synagogue. So having fashionable clothes stayed with the Jews all the time. So I think taking a little bit of everybody's statement, I think they all had a lot, something valid to say about how they were dressed.
All right. When I was young, my aunt used to criticize, he said in the high holy days, all these people that don't go all year long go to temple, and it's like a fashion show.
Right.
Which she meant in a negative way. But today people don't do that anymore. People wear jeans and shorts and sandals, and it can be the middle of Yom Kippur, and they'll wear whatever they want. And that includes the big shots or the people that come all the time. Nobody dresses up practically. And I kind of miss it a little bit. Marcia.
I agree with you, Rabbi. And I mean, I remember taking the kids to Friday night services, and it was a special thing. You put on a dress and, and the Mary Janes on the little girls or whatever. It was a special time. You knew it was separate out. But uniform wise, everybody who has some sort of a separate job, I guess, has a uniform, whether it's military or the garbage man or whatever. They wear a separate outfit to delineate what their position is. And if they wanted these people, these priests, to come into the service, and they wanted them people to understand that these people were special. And so you get to be special by having a special outfit.
Minya.
I think part of what you said also has to do with living in Arizona. When we first moved here, Larry would wear a jacket and tie all the time until we saw what people started wearing. So
Right.
now I'm not surprised anymore when I see someone come to services on Friday night and they're wearing shorts. At first I was shocked, but then I realized in Arizona, people do whatever they want. But I do agree with Marcia. I used to always make sure my kids were dressed, not in their play clothes, not in their school clothes, but just to look a little bit nicer because we were going to services. I think that's the past.
Definitely.
Okay, Marcia, back to you.
Okay, Sarna. One answer may have to do with the role of priests in early Jewish society. Nahum Sarna suggests that the priests are set apart from the rest of the people by dedication to the service of God, by their consecration to a distinctive way of life that gives expression to this intimate involvement with the divine through special duties and restrictions, and by the obligation to serve the people, from his book Exploring Exodus. Because they are set apart from the rest of the people by special duties, it seems logical that their priestly clothing should also call attention to their unique work and role in their society. Throughout human history, uniforms have been used to signify status, membership in a group, special skills, or privileges. Uniforms are symbols of identity, whether they are the colorful jerseys of a football team, the blue shirts of the police, or the black robes of a judge. Special attire signals not only what those who wear it do, but also whom they represent. Costumes are often badges of identity. The garments worn by Aaron, however, appear to have a function beyond identifying him as the high priest. Modern commentator Umberto Cassuto suggests that Aaron's special costume was a symbol of his consecration to God. It was a reminder to him that he played a unique role as God's servant. Wearing the Ephod, the Urim and Tumim, his blue robe and gold plate over his linen headdress made him conscious of his sacred responsibilities.
All right, and so the word Kohen is translated in English as priest, and I don't usually use that word. I call them Kohanim because priest, you think of a Catholic priest. And right before I came here, I worked part-time as part of my rabbi job in Alabama at Spring Hill College, which was a Catholic Jesuit college. And so I was in the Department of Theology, and my boss was a priest. And, they didn't wear their collars really very much, if at all. They wore normal clothes, but they were priests. But everybody knows that priests are known because of the white collars and the black robes that they wear. So there's something about a certain uniform or a certain style of dress that brings up certain, when police wear their uniforms, that has a very big difference than when they are plainclothes policemen, right? That so clearly this is a uniform, and it's not just identifying him as a Kohen and a Kohen Gadol, but it also seems to be sending a message about what that role is. And okay, comments? Yes, Riva.
Yeah, I always find references to traditions that we carry to modern times and first references. And I'm wondering if the reference to fringed tunic and this color blue are references to what has now become the tallis.
Oh, correct. Yes, this became the origin for the idea of the talit.
And then
And-
related to that, I know that the fringes the Orthodox are very concerned about the color blue that's used on the tallis, and it's supposed to come from a very specific beetle, as I recall.
Right. And our fundraising committee has found that beetle, and we're going to start selling it internationally.
Yeah.
Bobby
very costly,
Zilkind
yeah.
is working on the marketing for it. It's very expensive, but it's worth it. But yes, all that is true. And the talit fringes are supposed to have a thread that is blue. But
Mhm.
because at some point, the medieval sages said we couldn't be sure which animal it was or which insect it came from, they dropped that requirement. And every once in a while, somebody says, oh, we know which insect it is. We can start putting the blue back.
Oh, so they don't have blue now, the new ones?
Well, not on the thread, not on the actual tzitzit. Yeah. So, but on the garment, which doesn't really have any, strictly speaking, ritual function, there'll be a blue stripe, but that's just cosmetic. That's not any, that's just a substitute for the real thing. But it's become symbolic, and then the Israeli flag became that. Rochelle. Sorry, Rochelle, I
Okay,
see your hand now.
Oh, it's okay. No, hi everyone. I wanted to just kind of chime in and say, as far as the ephod went, I believe if it also served with the stones would light up if enemies were near as well. So it also served that, functionality as well. And just like any other uniform, I've worn a few of them. They were barriers. They were barriers against, blood. They were barriers against fire sometimes. Had to wear Kaplan vests. That was a barrier against bullets and things. So yeah, like you said, all these, I think everybody's uniform serves very practically. It's protective to them. And it also serves to, say, hey, this is who I am. And the respect that you would give a police officer, a firefighter, or even your garbage man,
Rochelle is hinting at something very important. There is in ancient Judaism a tremendous tradition of magic. And of course, in modern Reform Judaism, which wanted to make out Judaism be very rational, this was ignored for a long time. But in recent years, scholars have begun researching ancient Jewish magic. There's been 3 or 4 books on it in the last 5 or 6 years, each of which is like 700 or 800 pages.
I have a glycerina, please.
You have
I have 2 sips.
a what?
What?
I had to mute Lorraine because she was talking to Bert, I think.
Oh,
Okay.
she's not talking to me. You're not talking to me, Lorraine? Oh, okay. I thought she was saying she had one of the books on Jewish magic.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
That's, yes.
And
But
And with that being said, not to interrupt you, Rabbi, I'm sorry, but with that being said, that is something that I started studying, which was brought up to me as far as the Jewish magic goes. There's a lot of tuning with, particles of the earth as far as not only the trees and things, but also with the stones and different crystals and things that you find on the earth. I actually went around and I collected and got all the stones that you place in an ephod.
oh, wow.
Yeah, so I have all of those. About 6 of them are naturally found here in Arizona. I was able to go out and dig and find them. But yeah, it says something about, people have salt lamps and things like that. You use those types of calcite crystals and things. And it actually, not to sound weird, but, myself growing up doing these types of things, there is some sort of validity, I believe, in some of these things.
So yeah,
And-
I'm glad that Judaism is starting to recognize more of how things were done traditionally.
And I have at least one of these books as an ebook I can send if you want. And if you want, we can study the 800 and something pages of it. It's quite fascinating. And most of it is stuff that we don't encounter in our normal discourse on Judaism. So it's like a whole alternative underground ancient Judaism. So now remember that the Torah consists of certain elements, and then the Talmud is consisting of other elements, but these are both elites, just by the fact that they were literate, that they wrote, but they were specific groups. And there are other groups, including groups that were more interested in magic, that are not represented in these groups. So it's a whole new area of exploration. Other comments? If not, Marcia, back to you.
Okay, I think we're up to Hertz.
Yes.
Rabbi J. Hertz agrees with Casuto. He comments that these garments distinguish the priest from the lay Israelite and reminded him that even more than the layman, he must make the ideal of holiness the constant guide of his life. In other words, the heavy weight of all his priestly garments were a constant signal to Aaron that his duties and how he carried them out were a matter of great importance to God and to the people. Most interpreters agree that Aaron's priestly garb distinguishes him from others and reminds him of his sacred duties. However, some suggest that each of the garments may have had special symbolic meaning. These meanings, they maintain, are rich with significant lessons. Peli. Writing about the Ephod and breastplate of judgment, Pinchas Peli points out that Torah not only describes the Ephod with its two precious stones on which are written the names of the 12 tribes of Israel, but it also tells us that Aaron is to wear them over his heart when entering the sanctuary for prayer. Exodus 28:29. Peli argues that much more than style and decoration are intended in the Torah's description. It seems that the design of the ephod and the breastplate is meant to teach us an important lesson about responsible leadership. There are many leaders who, after they are elected or chosen for high office, swiftly forget the people whom they are supposed to represent. The names of the 12 tribes of Israel were to be carried on the shoulders of Aaron so that he should never forget the burden of their needs. Furthermore, Peli explains that the symbols were to be carried on his shoulders so that he would remember to be a loyal spokesman for them, filling his heart with love and compassion for each and every one of his people.
Okay, let's stop there. So which element is Peli talking about? What exact device?
It's the breastplate or the ephod, one of the two.
What is the ephod?
I'm not sure what the ephod is. That's why I'm.
Okay, who can tell me what the ephod is?
Rochelle. Rochelle has her hand up.
Okay. Yes, Rochelle?
The ephod was the plate that was made of gold and had the 12 stones that God had stated should be placed in them, and it was to be worn over top of the garment. It was a breastplate.
It was a breastplate.
And it also, those stones had the 12 tribes in it, carved in each one.
What is the ephod made out of?
I believe, wasn't it made out of gold and 12 different stones?
So it's the breastplate then, you're saying?
Yeah, it's almost like a piece of armor for the chest.
Uh-huh. And it's mentioned in the Bible?
Yes.
Where? In the Torah or in the Tanakh?
In the Torah. I believe it's in Exodus.
It says Torah in this, what I just read.
Okay, correct. So it's in the book of Exodus.
Yeah, it's in Exodus.
And it's woven out of gold, but also different threads, blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen. and it had a lot of gold in it.
So, well,
Yes,
I have a
the-
question. Is it woven gold or is it, a hard gold, piece of gold?
I think it's woven gold,
she-
but
she went
Rochelle
to get a
thinks it's
picture.
hard gold. I'm not sure.
Well, gold is hammered down, it comes in chunks. And they use a great force to hammer it down to very, very thin pieces, like gold leaf, or, how.
But it could be gold
trying to
wire
fit-
too, that's woven together,
They have embroidery from, ancient times.
comes with a picture.
Yeah, that are gold thread.
Now it looks like, now this is also mentioned in the book of Samuel, and the kings used it, Saul and David. And when they wanted to talk to God, they used it for what is called oracular purposes. So is that sort of like a Ouija board? What, does anybody know what oracular purposes would be?
Yeah, can you explain that?
Oracle. I
Oracle.
think it's oracle.
Yeah.
And what is an oracle?
Oh, so matters of divination?
Right. So when Saul or David wanted to speak with God or learn what God wanted, they would put this on.
Yes,
Wow.
that's how it was explained to me. That's
Oh.
how it was explained to me from my great grandmother.
So so what I'm saying now is consistent with what you knew, Rochelle.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's how it was described to me, that it was, if there were enemies near, the stones would light up. If people wanted to speak with God or went to speak with them, the stones would also light up.
Only
to
if
indicate
the king was wearing it, right? He had to put it
Yeah,
on for it to turn it on. Otherwise, if it's just sitting in the closet, it wouldn't work. So in the book,
that's just how it mentioned.
and it's in the
Wonder
book
if it
of
was
Samuel's, it's also in the book of Chronicles, and it's Saul maybe a little bit, but it's mostly King David. And so he would wear the ephod when dancing in the presence of the Ark of the Covenant. And this would, as Rochelle describes it, then have oracular purposes. It would help him communicate to God, and it would help God communicate with him. In the case she cited, if enemies are approaching, but I would gather that for all sorts of other messages as well. So this is, I guess we'd call this ancient Jewish magic, right?
I wondered if it was Bluetooth.
Marcia. Of
You
course
see
it
that?
was, of course it was
Marcia.
Bluetooth.
India has a picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there's
Mina
a
has a picture and is that King David?
I don't know, because the picture is primarily to show you what the plate looked like.
And the function of the plate. I should have put that in my contract when I came here that I would get an Ephod. Okay. I see
not
Rochelle.
showing too well.
Wait, you have to look at this one. Oh, you have to look at this one because
What is
this,
Rochelle? What are you holding up?
We can't hear you.
You're muted, Rochelle.
this one has the
Oh.
names of the tribes.
Oh, I
Oh,
see. Minya has.
She's got a
the-
much better picture, much better picture. I was trying to hold up one from my
Oh,
Torah,
wow.
but that's a much better picture.
That one has
Wow.
each of the tribes is underneath it.
Do any of our breastplates on our Torahs have anything like that?
I think we'd have to look. This would be a good thing to do on a Friday night. We could, we
Have a
generally.
treasure hunt.
Rochelle, we generally, the jewelry on the Torahs are generally in the way. It makes it easier to get hit in the nose, and it's harder to dance around with, to march around with them. So we generally look at more as an annoyance rather than something that has tremendous symbolic value. Rochelle.
Yeah, I would like to propose a craft night where we all ladies get together, and all of us, and craft our priest a breastplate. I have all the stones. We could craft him an ephod, and then we would have maybe the only rabbi wearing one.
Did you get them from Sedona?
I got them I actually got them all over here in Arizona, but yes, I picked up a few from Sedona, some of them from the north part, some of them from the south, but believe it or not, a lot of them from about an hour away from here. So.
Did you get them at Quartzsite? Rochelle?
I went to Quartzsite. I got a few things there. I went to Vulture Mine. I went to a few mines that were closed, almost fell through. Ran into a pit of snakes, fell off the mountain once. Yeah, I've been.
Wow.
Wow. What if the breastplate starts lighting up in the middle of service? And I'll have to say, everybody evacuate.
No, that's a beautiful thing because that's God. Oh, you mean the warning sign? Yes, everybody evacuate. Yes.
But I'll have to know how to interpret it, because I have to know what's God saying hello from God saying get out the back of the building quick. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'll be there for that. I'll teach you. I'll teach you. I know this. I know this type of stuff. This is my home ground here.
That happens. I'm telling Dave to turn off the Zoom.
I'm sorry.
I said, if that happens one night at services, I'm telling Dave to turn off the Zoom. Or I'm sorry, YouTube.
All right. Who'd like to read Nechama Leibowitz? I mean, these are all famous commentators that we've encountered. I've mentioned a little who they are already, but if you are interested, ask me about them. Otherwise, I won't tell you about them. Who'd like to read Nechama Leibowitz, left side of page 75? Yes, Minya.
Nechama Leibowitz sees the symbolism of the breastplate with its 12 gemstones, each engraved with the name of a tribe of Israel, not as a reminder to Aaron of his responsibilities, but as a sign of the people's holiness. Aaron, wearing his linen headdress and gold plate with "Holy to the Lord" inscribed upon it, represented the entire people when he stood before God in prayer. He and his garments, writes Leibowitz, were not an end in themselves, but both he and the task undertaken by him in the sacred vestments constituted a means of stimulating the awareness and consciousness that Israel is holy to the Lord. For Leibowitz, the priestly costume was meant to encourage the people to be holy, distinct in their moral standards and performance, as well as loyal to their ritual traditions. The challenge to Aaron was to fulfill all the responsibilities of the high priest, and the challenge to the people was to be known as priests of God. Aaron's colorful garments symbolized their mutual mission. Several commentators notice that the Torah calls for Aaron to wear a blue robe underneath the ephod. It is to be embroidered with a decorative hem of alternating golden bells and pomegranates. As Yu Kasuto points out, the pomegranate was a common ornamental device among ancient Middle Eastern peoples. The bells, however, are given a special significance within the Torah's description of them. We are told that Aaron shall wear it while officiating, so that the sound of it is heard when he comes into the sanctuary before the Lord and when he goes out, that he may not die. Were the bells really meant to save Aaron's life? What was the danger of entering the sanctuary that made it necessary for a noisemaker to protect Aaron? Kasuto suggests that the ancients saw the sanctuary as the royal palace of God. Just as one would never enter the king's place without a proper announcement, so one is not allowed to enter God's palace sanctuary without ringing the bell. Cassuto puts it this way: it is unseemly to enter the royal palace suddenly. Propriety demands that the entry should be preceded by an announcement, and the priest should be careful not to go into the sanctuary irreverently. Among Hindus and Buddhists, bells are often used to announce the presence of worshipers in the sanctuary and the beginning of sections of prayer. The bells on the Torah crowns are also meant to signal honor for the Torah and the joy of its study. Chimes in a church often announce the beginning or conclusion of prayer. The use of sound in religious ritual is universal.
Okay, thank you, Minya. Yes, Riva.
This is either a Hindu or a Buddhist bell. And I thought the reference to bell was very, very interesting because it crosses, I think, a great many cultures. Certainly churches have bells have important meaning. And I think other religions, in addition to the Hindus and the Buddhists, use bells. And they're tuned, and they're often beautifully tuned and very carefully made.
Are you muted?
No.
That's all I have to say about that.
Bernie.
Is the thing about decorating with pomegranates, is that why we call those two things that sit on the dowels rimonim?
Yes, the word rimonim are the bells, and rimon in Hebrew is a pomegranate. In modern Hebrew, it was also the word for grenade. But obviously that I don't know why either Ben Yehuda or somebody in the early 20th century decided, I guess they thought a grenade looked like a pomegranate. So when you say rimon or rimonim, you don't know if you're referring to a grenade or a pomegranate or a bell on a Torah, but it means all three things. Babette.
Well, I think it's very interesting. They're talking about bells and sounds and this kind of thing. And I've been told by many people who are conservative Jews that they don't like reform because there's too much sound, too much music. They don't like it. I don't understand, quite frankly, where it comes from, because here we're reading it, the Torah, likes those embellishments.
Right, but this was done in the temple after the destruction of the Second Temple, or certainly in the medieval modern periods. Orthodox Jews said no music, no bells, nothing, especially on Shabbat. So the Orthodox aesthetic over the past 200 or 300 or 500 years has been no musical instruments.
But that's Orthodox. They're in a world unto themselves.
Oh, okay, well.
But conservative Jews, and that's what they have told me.
But it's based simply on what they're used to and what their parents told them, not based on 2,000-year-old precedent. But you'll find a lot of the Orthodox will say, we've been doing this for 2,000 years, but it's very specific to 2,000 years, because if they went 2,100 years, they would see that things had been very different. So sure, some of the Orthodox practices have been going on for a long time, but only for, but not originally. If you go back before the destruction of the Second Temple, things were very different. There were a lot of bells, there was a lot of music, there were harp, there was all sorts of tambourines, etc. Marcia.
It's very arbitrary. I had a big argument with my rabbi in Massachusetts because during my youngest son's bat mitzvah, my daughter was going to sing and my son play the piano, and he would not allow the piano to be played in the sanctuary. And we had a big argument. So the resolution was the service concluded and then they did their thing. So it was outside the service. So that made it okay. But then within a couple of years, he allowed a guitar to be played in there. And since then, an electric piano. So I think it's just, it's arbitrary.
All right,
Hmm.
everything in religion is arbitrary. You got to go with the times and you have to adjust to the needs of the people. So it is arbitrary and, but somebody's got to be the boss, and the rabbi wanted to be the boss, so he could get away with it. Rochelle.
First, I'd just like to say thank you to Reva for ringing that beautiful, beautiful bell that you have. That is absolutely gorgeous. But I just wanted to say when it comes to bells and different sounds and things, if you close your eyes and listen to a gong or listen to a bell or a piano or anything, what it's meant to do is it's meant to generate energy and life force within you. So if you listen to a bell and close your eyes, it's meant to vibrate the body fluids, the humors of the body. So I think it's really neat. And I can't believe, Babette, that I've never even heard of that, but that's crazy. They don't want music, some of them.
That's right. That's right. When I've spoken to those who are from Beth Emeth,
Right.
No. They feel, that our services are more like church to them than a synagogue. Yeah.
See, and our singing, this synagogue has got so much music. I can't tell you, my soul feels rejuvenated when I get to go to synagogue and I hear all this music. And
well, we all love Baruch.
Yes, he is very talented. But yeah, I've never heard of that. Thank you for telling me. Hopefully, oh wow, that's odd. Thank you.
But people bring prejudices from what their own, childhoods are. Now, some of these prejudices are perfectly reasonable and some are less so. But if we're used to something when we're children and we like something or don't like something, that, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. If I'm raised in a religious environment where there are no bells and I don't want bells, I don't want bells. But I guess the problem is when that person starts to say, Judaism is against bells, or bells should no one should ever want bells, but if they just said the truth, that I personally didn't grow up with this and I don't want bells because of personal reasons, that strikes me as much more of a appropriate statement. And then somebody else can say, but I like bells. I was in India for 3 months and I really grew to enjoy that. Or in the temple, they had bells. And then the first person to say, well, did you see that in the temple? And then the answer would have to be, no, I'm not really that old, but I read about it and we discussed it in Torah study a few weeks ago. So, Bernie, Rick, Lorraine, any comments?
Well, when we were interviewing you, Rabbi, I remember the question that I posed to you and to the group was, what part would music play in your services? Because I think the big attraction for me is music in the religious service. And it just stirs my soul like nothing else. And
what did and you asked what role would music play, and what did I say?
Oh, you said the right answer. You said yes, it would play a role. I think it's part of what, like Rochelle said, so many people are attracted to our synagogue because of Baruch's wonderful way and the music, etc.
And in Georgia, we had a spiritual service once every 6 weeks where we had some bells. It was just deliberately designed to be kind of hippie funky. And so I'd love to experiment with stuff like that here. But, it's hard because there's people that want, they want the same every week, and any deviation gets them upset. So it's you're back and forward between you want to innovate, but you don't want to alienate people. So it's it's a delicate tightrope that requires to be walked. But it'd be really nice to do some musical innovations and have a band or have some bells that, you know, there's groups that do bell. And then for some people, it's important that anything like that have strictly Jewish origins, that it be traceable back to the temple and so forth. For other people, maybe not, that, you know, if it's modern and it's interesting, then it's perfectly okay. Nan, and then Marcia, and then Bernie, and then Steve Siegel, and then Pam.
Wow.
Rabbi, I really enjoy how you are so receptive to listening to suggestions by congregants, whether they're regular physical sanctuary attendants or YouTube viewers. And, you know, I think that's, for me, that has really what draws me to the service on Friday nights in person, that there are changes, and you listen to everybody, whether it's somebody who's more observant or from a much more traditional Orthodox background, or some of us that, you know, didn't grow up with this, but like to expand the service. And I personally, I think go for a bell service and just say, you know, let's see what happens. It, like Rochelle said, bells can be so spiritual and more soul, get more into the depth of one's soul. And, you know, if it doesn't work and people say afterwards, no, this was a little too weird, you know, you don't have to do it again. But that's one of the things that I really enjoy about you, that you're receptive. I mean, I'll tell you, I have been to services, and there are congregations in the valley where the cantors are very musical. And for me, if they're trying to be a rock star or a big performer, to me, that's a turnoff. But if it can be added to enhance the service without going really too far, then I think it's fine. So I think that's
Thank
good.
you, Nan. Thank you, Nan, for those compliments. Thank you. We're Marcia, Bernie, Steve Siegel, Pam Katz, Dee Sams.
You got to keep notes.
I do.
Yeah. So I know that in this congregation several years ago, we had one of our congregants wanted to, what's her name? I'm losing my mind. Moses' sister.
Miriam.
They wanted to do Miriam's song, Dancing Around, with the tambourines. And it was kind of fun. And we involved the young girls as well, children, you know, that were girls, as well as the women, to do it with us, just tambourine, singing Miriam's song as we went around, Mika Mocha, whatever. And it was very controversial. So I think if we announced it as a unique event that we were having this service, it would be accepted. But I think to do that, they didn't want to do it every week, you know, kind of thing. Even having the cantor has been doing some Osei Shaloms that are somewhat lively, and for years that was not allowed. I mean, we couldn't do that. It had to be a very subdued Osei Shalom during the service.
Well, they were older, much older, and some of them are gone.
That's true. And so things change, right? Okay. That's all I had to say.
Bernie, Steve Siegel, and then Pam, and then Dee.
I've attended a number of services where they actually did a sermon and song, where the cantor or the person in charge of the music would do the sermon and song, and It really, it helped me, it helped motivate me, and it was very spiritual.
Interesting. Interesting. You'll have to tell me exactly how that might be done. Pam.
I had a question. Did the priests in the first and second temple also wear these type of garments? And after the temple era went away, did these garments go away?
Presumably, I mean, we'd have to try to prove that they, just because they're in the Torah doesn't mean they actually existed, right? It could be retroactive, hopeful writing or theoretical, this is what should have been. So we don't know 100%. We presume that there was something like this, yes, and that it went away after destruction of Second Temple because there'd be no more official function for the priests. And that's why in the Orthodox service, the first Aliyah to the Torah, right, in a Saturday morning Orthodox service, there's 7 Aliyot where people would bless the Torah. The first one is reserved for the Kohens. The second one is reserved for the Levites. And only the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh are for all of Israel. And being Kohen and Levi is a hereditary function that goes through the father's line. So, for example, if you convert to Judaism, you cannot be a Kohen or a Levi. It's impossible. So you're in Israel. And it's only men, right, that we're talking about. So this was done to preserve the identity or to encourage preservation of the identity for the Kohens and Levis for a time when they would resume function in the temple that might be rebuilt. So that now in Reform, we've done away with that because we don't believe in status based on hereditary factors. So if you have high status because you studied like a rabbi, that's because you studied. But to just say because you're a Kohen, because your father's a Kohen, that gives you the right for the first Aliyah, that's against the principles of Reform Judaism. So we eliminated that. In Jamaica, that became an issue because they wanted to preserve the idea of Kohen and Levi while still being Reformed. So we wrote a shelah to the experts at the Central Conference of American Rabbis, and they actually wrote an official answer, which is part of the, which is part of their proceedings that goes in the next book of rabbinic answers to congregational questions on technical issues of Reform Judaism. But the answer they gave is, you can preserve a system as you want, but we're not going to make an official, system because it would be impossible. Because, if you want to be egalitarian, are you going to go back 100 generations to see which women had, Kohen or Levi backgrounds, and then retroactively assign them to be Kohens or Levis? It would be chaotic. So they said, if there's certain people that claim, and we wanted to know about that, there were these 4 sisters whose father was a Kohen, and they wanted to be Kohens, and this was a controversial thing. Can they be Kohens? It goes against orthodoxy, but we're egalitarian, right? And we're gender equal. So, it was interesting. D.
Hey, first of all, I agree with Rochelle. Also, I played the piano for several years, and in my world, music soothes the soul. And when they used to have the organ at our temple, and the choir, it was beautiful. And Reiki, okay, they use, and I'm sure Rochelle knows this, they use crystals, and I've done it. Crystals create the most beautiful vibrational sounds. So music in any form, bells, crystals, can really create a beautiful mindset. and a peaceful mindset, especially for Shabbat. So I think those would be a very interesting way to introduce the service. I think they do it, don't they, Rabbi? Or they did it in Germany and the Reform.
Yes, yes,
I remember reading that. They did those. So,
yes. This was one of the innovations that was tried in certain German Reformed temples
right.
before World War II. We also, of course, used to have a choir in our temple, and Bert Stoloff, among others, was in that choir, and others. And if done well, that can also be a tremendous, so you want different sources of music, not just from the cantor, but from other places as well. But that requires us all to work together to create that and to make sure that that is nurtured. So it's, yes, B.
Can't hear you.
You have to mute.
Interesting, as I was brought up in a conservative family, kosher home, everything. And in temple where they wouldn't have a piano, they had a choir. I was in it. So if they didn't want music, why was there a choir? I don't understand that.
Well, in Orthodoxy, there was a prohibition against instruments that had to be tuned, because it was one of the 39 forbidden categories of work is tuning on Shabbat. So a guitar, or to lesser degree a piano, might get out of tune, and it's Saturday morning or Friday night, and you're thinking, uh-oh, we have a big musical piece tonight or tomorrow, and we need to get this guitar or piano or harpsichord or whatever tuned. And so you would be tempted to tune it. That's and even so this is part of the fences around the Torah. You don't do things that might lead to doing other things that are prohibited, even if the first thing is not prohibited. So, for example, it's prohibited to swim on Shabbat, not because there's anything wrong with swimming, but because you might not have a big towel. So you might use a little towel, and the little towel might get soaked, and you might be tempted to wring out the little towel to reuse it. So you don't swim because that might bring you into a situation where you might be tempted to do one of the 39 prohibited categories of work. So in Reform, we don't really accept any of these things.
Well, what's also in is when I read this parshat yesterday, I'm going, oh, this is not important. Why are we reading it? And I must say I have learned a great deal from it, and I see the importance. So thank you.
And this essay just skims the surface. As Rochelle implied, there's a lot more to a lot of these symbols from a ancient perspective of ancient Jewish magic that, we could do they have whole books on it, as I said. Okay, who was next wanted to talk, somebody, Lorraine.
Yes. We used to do services at the beach when I was living in New Jersey. And I don't think, if I can paint you a visual with some video, I don't think there's anything more beautiful than that. Feeling the ocean breezes, the lapping of the waves, and with the gorgeous sounds, the peace it gives, the children running and playing while the beautiful music is playing. It was amazing. And when my son chose a new temple in Maryland, when they first moved there, he found the temple. He said, Ma, this is right up your alley. They have services in the park. Being close to nature like that and experiencing the warmth and the participation of everyone. Is there I know we don't have a beach here, but is there some way we could replicate outdoor services once in a while? Or
Yes.
we've tried it, I think, right?
I've certainly suggested it, but I need a group that wants to do it, and that I need the religious practice committee to actually implement it. But I think that an outdoor service, especially this time of year, would be wonderful before it gets too hot. So
Well, there's a lake
Absolutely.
right behind the library in Surprise. It's a very nice lake.
But we have
Yes,
the
there
biblical
is.
garden too.
so
We have the biblical
I'd love
garden.
to do that, but I
Well,
don't,
that's not a lake.
yeah, well,
Got what you got, though.
Marcia, did you want to say something?
We have the biblical garden, and
Right.
that's a possibility. I know they're doing a small, by invitation, Havdalah this weekend, but something like in the biblical garden. But that's a possibility too, just to, have a Havdalah if we had attendance, because we didn't have much attendance when Andre
Well,
was.
we did not.
Yeah.
We didn't have much attendance when we did what?
When we
Havdalah.
did Havdalah with Andre, even though those
Oh,
of
I
us who
loved
did
it.
attend
It
were
was so
very happy with it.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, Ariva.
Yeah, I love the larger question that we're asking here is that what symbols are significant and meaningful to us in terms of how we think of ourselves as Jewish? I think it's a wonderful question. And certainly some of those symbols have changed over time dramatically. Some have disappeared, some have recurred. The ones that I particularly love are some of the melodies that you can go almost anywhere in the world. And if you get yourself into a temple or a shul of some sort, certain melodies, resonate within you from your childhood. You grew up hearing this. That is enormously meaningful. Also, some of the symbols that we don't follow so carefully, but we see, for example, in the Catholic Church, where they use clothing, to an enormous degree of differentiating different parts of the priestly community. So I think the bigger issue, the smaller issue of, fashion or style or whatever doesn't say too much to us, but what's the deeper meaning of the symbols and which ones work for us, for within our community, is a wonderful question.
Pam.
The symbol I like, which was in this parsha, but we didn't discuss that part, is the Ner Tamid. To me, it's just the fact that it's always burning light and it's perpetual. It's just, to me, it's just a sign of our Judaism. It just goes on forever. I always look up at the Ner Tamid.
And you can have more than one Ner Tamid in your synagogue. In Jamaica, they had two, because when they merged in 1917 or something around that time, there was the Ashkenazic and the Sephardic, and each one brought their Ner Tamid. So they hung one to the left, one to the right, and there were two of them. So, and of course, most of the time, these are not actual lights. They're supposed to symbolize the fire from the temple, but most synagogues have light bulbs. So they can go out once in a while, and you have to replace the light bulbs. So it's not as Ner Tamid, an eternal light, an all everlasting light is not as everlasting as you might think. Okay, other comments? We'll go on then. Who'd like to read? Oh, we have two. One in the main section, one in the small. Thank you, Nan. So we do have two of our own. Who'd like to read? We're at the bottom of page 75 on the right. Okay, Nan.
Okay. Jacob Zvi Mecklenburg believes that the bells on Aaron's robe represented more than an announcement of his coming and going into the sanctuary. He writes that unlike the rest of the Israelites, the high priest had many additional responsibilities relating to the rituals and sacrifices of the people. The bells, Mecklenburg explains, functioned as symbols, warning Aaron with each step that he must discharge his sacred duties with care and diligence. They were auditory reminders, With each ring, the high priest knew that he was an instrument of God, serving not himself, but his people. Was all of this attention to the beauty of the priestly garments on the expenditure of community resources for the creation of a magnificent sanctuary necessary? It is clear that the builders of the first Mikdash and of the Jerusalem temples after it used the finest materials and employed the most skilled artisans. Their standard was one of excellence. They demanded of themselves that their sanctuaries and services be beautiful. Their motive, however, seems to have been more than the outward appearance of beauty. Perhaps they demanded that the Mikdash symbolize the kind of world they believed they were commanded to create, one of beauty, harmony, and riches shared by all. They may have insisted also on what later Jewish tradition called Hidur Mitzvah, a standard that calls upon every Jew to enhance each mitzvah with special enthusiasm, additional effort, and where appropriate, the highest quality of product affordable. For example, one performs Hidar Mitzvah when one gives charity, not only generously, but in a way that protects the feelings of the recipient. The use of a beautiful silver cup rather than an ordinary goblet for Shabbat Kiddush is another symbol of Hiddur Mitzvah. For the ancients, beautifying the sanctuary was a means of uplifting it to a place of honor.
Okay, thank you, Nan. So Hidur Mitzvah, this is a good concept for you. Hidur Mitzvah means beautification of a mitzvah, or extending a mitzvah to do it in the nicest way possible. So you have a mitzvah to observe Shabbat, and so you could show up at services in shorts, but Hidur Mitzvah would be to wear a $10,000 Nina Cerruti dress, or making kiddush over the wine. You could use a plastic cup, but it'd be nicer to use a solid silver goblet from the museum that was made in 1300, and so forth and so forth. Hidur Mitzvah, and Hidur means beautification of the mitzvah. Comments, responses? Yes, Rochelle.
Yeah, I'm glad I learned about this because now I can give Justin a lot of justification as to why I have the Tiffany candlestick holders, and why I want that Tiffany menorah. Yeah, I'm doing indoor mitzvah.
Go for it, girl.
Yes, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. I'm sure there's a counter concept, but I don't know what that would be to argue against Hidur Mitzvah, saying we need to spend more money on X or Y because it's a Hidur Mitzvah. And then there'd be the answer like, no, you've got to keep the budget down because of, and I'll do some research on that on behalf of Justin and all the other husbands whose budgets are being stressed. Okay, Lorraine.
Yeah, you know how little children bring an object to school, say on a Friday morning for show and tell? I was thinking, like Reva has the bells and Rochelle seems to have a lot of beautiful stones and things. Would it be appropriate to set aside some time with advance notice, of course, so people can look for something in their home and bring it, a special object to share? It would be very interesting.
Like a special object to bring on a Friday night to share?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
what kind of objects? Like something like family items related to Shabbat or?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Bye, Benita. Okay, that's a nice idea. That's a very nice idea. D.
Yeah, I would imagine that a lot of people have, I mean, I have the Kaddish cup and things from my family that it's very, very old that I would love to share. It's been in my family and been passed down, and I'll pass it down. But yeah, I think, Lorraine, that is a great idea. I like it.
Mhm. Okay. Anyone else? Riva, Rick, Steve?
I agree with all of those comments, especially the idea that we share some of those things that have deep meaning for us related to our families and related to Judaism.
Okay, if someone wants to bring an item this Friday, or a couple of you, just email me and I'll put it on the Shabbat service menu, and I'll give you a chance to come forward to the reader's desk and you can show everyone and, you know, take 2 or 3 minutes to explain what it is and why it's important. And that would be interesting. And then that would be an easy way to get this tradition started. So just email me and send me a picture of the item. I think I have something like that it's not for my family, but when I was in Jamaica, I saw on eBay Kiddush cup from Afghanistan. So it was not expensive. So I bought it and it came in a little package. It turned out it was a miniature Kiddush cup. And what it was is in the synagogues, they used to have, you know, one big Kiddush cup and then like 15 little cups that you would then pour into all of them and distribute. So this was not the main Kiddush cup. This was one of the little ones. And, you know, the set had obviously been, you know, divided up, and, you know, somebody had sold, you know, one or more of the little ones, I guess all of them at some point. So I've got a little Kiddush cup from Afghanistan, from a synagogue, probably dating back 60 or 70 years. There's a Megillat Esther for sale right now from 1750 in Germany.
Oh.
And someone had suggested they were gonna bid on a Megillat Esther that was on an auction that someone in our group who can identify themselves if they so choose. And so we did a little research and I found on eBay that there's lots of interesting Megillas and other documents that are being sold on eBay, hopefully legally. And this one I think was $900. And then they had one for $9,000 from Morocco. So I wasn't sure why the one from Germany from 1750 was much cheaper than the one from Morocco, but you really have to know your manuscripts, you know, before you start buying things on eBay, because prices are. But anyway, it would be nice if we had items that came from our families, but we don't always have that. Comments, Marcia?
I just want to tell a mini story. Harvey Millman, whose son's passed, was in Germany on a trip, you know, sponsored by his corporation, Toyota or somebody that he was working for at the time. And there was an antique shop and there was a oil menorah in the window. And the lady in the shop was very nasty. She was really sort of, you know, anti-Semitic nasty. And he said, I couldn't leave that menorah there with her. I had to buy it just to get it out of that shop. So I know his daughter has that menorah now, but he had to save the menorah, you know.
I have one that I bought in a flea market in Israel that I'm sure is old. It's hanging on my wall that was, for oil.
Oh, I have a menorah in Jamaica that was a very simple menorah, but that was given out to people, immigrants in Israel in the late 40s, early 50s, right at the beginning of the state. And all these immigrants came to the country with very little, and they needed menorahs. So they were, I guess they were sold or given out for just a few cents, but now it's older. Marcia.
I got up to look for just a moment ago. I have a little, it's this big. It's a little Kiddush cup, and it says, it's white, clear glass. And I don't think it's crystal. And it says Shabbat on it. And my mother had it. And I was just thinking back years wise, this thing has got to be about 100 years, almost 100 years old minimally. And, but I just I misplaced it, and I got to go look for it after class. I mean, these things that follow us through the years, it's amazing what we have,
Now, Harvey Fields concludes with a message of intent and discipline, the very last paragraph. Additionally, all the attention given to the quality of the materials from which the priestly garments were made, including every detail of their decoration, carries the message that valuable creations, whether a sanctuary, a worship service, a sacred garment, or holy object, are all the result of careful, patient, disciplined hours of artistic skill and work. They do not arise magically. They do not result from indifference, laziness, or neglect. Achieving excellence and beauty requires discipline, time, devotion, and much effort. And so having that devotion and discipline and effort, that's really, certainly Harvey Fields's message to us. I think that we've only just skimmed the surface of the symbolic and magical meaning of the Ephod, and we didn't really talk about the Urim and Turim at all. But there's a lot of, we could do a whole course, Riva, hint, hint, hint. We could do a whole year's course on ancient Jewish magic. And so you can sign up with Riva now. What?
Rochelle will have to help teach that.
Okay, any final
As long as I'm not burned at the stake.
I say again? Say again? Rochelle, couldn't hear you.
I said, as long as I'm not burned at the stake. Oh, can you hear me now?
Better.
Yes.
Say it again.
Okay. Yeah, I just said, as long as I'm not burned at the stake, as was one of my relatives.
Not Massachusetts.
I don't give out any guarantees, but we'll try not to.
Michelle, you got a book in you. You got a book.
All right, I'm turning it back over to Steve for the Riva, and then Steve. Riva?
Final reminder: today's the last opportunity to call the temple or email the temple and register for our adult Jewish education class. Thinking about God. How does evil exist in the world with a good God? Class starts tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, and our rabbi is leading it.
Thank you, Riva.
And if you know of anybody else you think might enjoy or benefit from the class, please invite them to join.
And over to you, Steve.
Okay, let us conclude with the final blessing. Baruch atah Asher natan Blessed is Adonai our God, ruler of the universe. who has
given us a teaching of truth.
implanted within us eternal life. Blessed is
Blessed is
Adonai.
Adonai, giver of the
Torah.
Amen.
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 Have a wonderful rest of the week, everyone, and we'll
Hope to see you Friday night.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Everybody.
Bye.